Now, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Awesemo.com Live Before Lock show, our last big slate right before the Christmas break, and it is going to be a very, very big one today. 11 games to hit on. I'm Chris Spags, joined not by the Chubster, who's fallen ill conveniently after winning a 5-figure win over the weekend. I'm, in fact, joined by your very old pal, Emac, not your old pal, Fast City Fear. How are you doing, Emac?
Oh, that one hurts. That one hurts just a little bit. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling a little tired. It's feeling it in my bones here. But no, it's holiday week. I know we have a lot of people traveling. Luckily, I was working from home when the call went out that one Mr. Engelman was not feeling well, so I filled in for a couple of his content pieces today, and here we are. But he returned the favor on Saturday, so
there we go.
He hooked me up there. So I hope he feels better because I know his parents are in town visiting as well.
Yeah, he's good timing for old Josh to be falling ill with the Andre Drummond avocado blues right now while his family is in town. But he is in fact out. He'll be back on Christmas Day with Fast Eddie Fear. So watch both those guys then. Of course, we are going to have all the same usual content. No four corners and all that. No strategy show, but straight to Live Before Lock for that Wednesday Christmas slate. So go watch that then because you're going to be playing. I'm sure we'll all be playing. So make sure to go check out the information we'll have from Fast Eddie and Josh on Wednesday. We are here today. And of course, we are presented by Fantasy Draft, the official home of rake-free DFS. And you should be checking them out today. We've got some free roll contests over there. We have the big tournament, a lot of big tournaments really on Fantasy Draft on Wednesday for Christmas Day as well. And the good thing about playing on Fantasy Draft is you are getting all of that rake-free. All the contest entry fees go to the winners on Fantasy Drafts. Go to fantasydraft.com right now. Use the promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO, for your free 7-day trial and your entry into the world of rake-free DFS. Emac, you are a player. You play pretty much every slate, I feel like, across every sport. You are the definition of a grinder in a good way across the DFS industry. Tell people real fast why you are playing on Fantasy Draft for some of your lineups.
Absolutely. So the one reason I really like about Fantasy Draft is that we have the rake-free sports over there. And that's key because you can lose so much just in the churn. There's so much good information out there. People are getting smarter. There aren't the fish. If you think there are fish are out there, you're probably the fish. I hate to say it, but you got to be a little smart with this. Now, the key with it is how it works is you get a subscription. So everybody can play $100 over there every 30 days and not have to get a subscription. But if you want to play more than $100, you need a subscription. So the one I have is $5.99 for 30 days, and that allows me to play $1,000. And that $1,000, if I were to play through all of it, again, cost me the $5.99. That would cost me between $120 and $150 on the other side. So which is better, $150 or $6? And the other thing is I've done 3 months of it because I did most of the football season. I've missed a week here or there, but effectively I bought 3 different months. So that's what, $18. And I've saved, even though I'm only playing there, the occasional NBA slate and most of the football ones, I've saved almost $60 now. So that difference is $55. So even though I haven't been using it all the time, I've still saved money. So the point being, it is a dramatic discount. And we've seen what Alex have done. Brick 75's talked about it as well. It's definitely the way to go. And especially as it gets harder and harder to beat other people, this is one way that you get that little edge. Because if you're kind of just a break-even player, but you were all of a sudden to get an extra 10% on top of it, you'd be profitable again.
Yeah, it's a very important part of building your bankroll as a DFS player, just playing responsibly with your own money. More money that goes in your pocketbook, the better off you'll be in the long term. So go to fantasydraft.com right now. Use that promo code AWESEMO. And last plug, we do have a giveaway going on right now on the @Awesemo_com Twitter handle. But check out the pinned tweet on there. You'll find our 8 crazy days of giveaways on there. They are fully insane days of giveaways. And today the giveaway involves a signed Awesemo hoodie from our own Alex Awesemo Baker, getting the full celebrity/athlete treatment out there. So go check out the pinned tweet on @Awesemo_com and see all the details on there right now about how to enter, because we're going to be having a bunch of giveaways for that to really celebrate you guys. Say thank you for all of you supporting us throughout this year and especially throughout the holiday season. All right, Emac, we just got some news. So it is a fun day here because now we have no Malcolm Brogdon on the slate either. It's going to open up some more value, one would think, for probably Aaron Holiday and TJ McConnell in particular. But we'll see how this affects everything with Awesemo's projections, because that'll probably be coming up real fast here. But Emac, Malcolm Brogdon being out, does that change anything for you? Because I know, like you, unlike me, you usually are building during the shows when you're hosting. I usually try to set my stuff aside. So I'm locked in for the second we do the show for the most part. But how are you going to change things now that you know that you're not going to have Brogdon in there, going to have some more minutes opened up in that Indiana backcourt?
Well, the one thing it does do is it allows some pivots away from potentially Ish Smith, Troy Brown, etc. If you don't want to play roulette there with the Knicks guard. So kind of to set the stage, literally everybody's hurt for the Wizards. They have, in my opinion, 3.5 NBA caliber players right now. So that is where we want to go for our building, our base, our what do we call it, our core plays. But you can still differentiate elsewhere by getting some of these other key guys out and creating some additional value that's popping up, which should not be a surprise on a 22 with 22 teams in action here. It gives us some other pivots away from things. So I'm okay going with either Holiday or with TJ McConnell instead of Ish Smith. I think they all kind of have about the same upside. Yes, you would like to think that Ish has a more stable floor, but if we start to look at, and we'll have to see what this does with the popularity of everybody, but you would want to take somebody that's going to be 15% owned and has an equally likely chance of besting somebody that's going to be owned twice as much as that, because the way the math works, cross multiplication and all that fun, two out of 3 times you would actually be better off. And that's something that's hard for people to understand. Now, that's an easier example I'm just using there. I haven't looked this up, and I know Alex and Josh, and there are tools for that. But this is where we talk about pivots. Mm-hmm. This is where we talk about leverage. So your main lineup, yeah, fine. Go with Ish Smith. It's for the block. But remember, that everybody was talking about Ish and revenge. 0 for 7 his last game against Philly. The game before that against Philly, 7 for 9. Well, which was it? Was he scared of them this time? Did he remember they were one of the teams he played for, etc.? It's don't let that cloud your judgment. So I do want to talk about one thing with the Wizards, though. So here's what I am worried about, Chris. Do they have enough viable NBA players to continue having the best, most efficient offense that is out there? I don't think so. Who is going to do the shooting? Bradley Beal. Can he take more shots than he had last game? I'm not sure. He took 24 in the last game, made just over half of them. He made all of his free throws. He had his second or third highest rebounds with 8 on the season. He's hit 10 twice. He had 7 assists. I think he's topped that like 8 times this season. So he had damn near the perfect game in his last outing. My point being, he still only had about 6. When I say only, he had 60 or 62 fantasy
a very
points.
Unimpressive 60 fantasy
Yeah, depending on your side. But the point is that I don't see him unleashing to get the James Harden 80, the Russell Westbrook 80, the Giannis Antetokounmpo 90. I don't see that happening here. Is he a fine core play? Yeah, absolutely. But is he going to end your slate for you? I don't think so with 22 teams on it. And that's just something I wanted to have people think about here. His overall popularity at the moment looks like he's third highest owned player pretty much on every site here. He's going to come in on about a third of the lineups. I think that's fine. Some of the earlier stuff where we saw, he might get up to 50%. That's about where the tipping point is for me. But if he got 65 points tonight, would that end your night? If you went with Hassan Whiteside and then used just using DraftKings, use that $1,100 or so and upgraded elsewhere, and you didn't use Ish Smith and you went instead with Alec Burks or somebody else that could easily outscore Ish Smith, etc. This is where I don't think it's a true stars and scrubs night today. I think we use the value plays, but I think what we want to do is, instead of consolidating all of our extra salary cap into 2 or 3 top end players, you do it in 5 really, really good guys in great spots, because there are a lot of good matchups out there tonight.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys in that, 5 to 7K range. Let's say you have some upside, especially on DraftKings. McCollum, the deeper dive guys talked about that. McCollum just underpriced for what his role has been, especially without Carmelo out there. Both Lillard and CJ McCollum shot over 23 shots in their last game. Lillard had 25, McCollum had 23. And at his price point, like, McCollum's too cheap. Buddy Hield's a guy I got a good amount of today, which I don't quite get why, but I looked at his box scores and I think I get it a bit more. He shot like 3 for 15 or 3 for 18 in his last start. I'm forgetting that one offhand. But it's a guy who's been kind of cold in a pace-up spot against Houston, where Sacramento's projected to be scoring a lot more points tonight. I guess my point overall is that, like Emac mentioned, there are ways you can go to get away from Beal. If you're looking at just median projections, like, you're not going to find a median projection that's going to be less than 45 fantasy points for him. And for a guy's middle outcome, with the amount of usage he should have today, the amount of opportunity he should have against the poor Knicks team, it's a pace down spot, but still a bad defense. Like, Beal's going to get you a pretty good number. The question is, on an 11-game slate, can you go places besides Beal? I think we're seeing that now with the ownership, where Beal's projected for 26% ownership on our most recent run for DraftKings. Like, that feels about right because there are just ways you can build without him. I think we're getting to a point though where it's low enough where at 26%, like I think I have 30-ish, and that was about where I thought the ownership was going to shake out. So I wanted to be with the field. I think you can start to maybe consider going above Beal because maybe people see this big slate size and maybe they're taking your logic, EMAC, and they're just like, well, I can go other ways. And there is some value in just having a guy who has a floor and can get you 60 fantasy points. Maybe he can get to that 70, 80 fantasy points. Who knows? It's the last game before Christmas. Sometimes guys go big in that spot.
All right, I'm going to drop this into chat here. This is the Cash Game Building Blocks article, free article we do every day. It's got what I call the primetime player today for me. That's Julius Randle. I've got usually do good value, risky value, and risky value doesn't mean somebody's bad value. But today the risky value was actually Bradley Beal, and I just kind of broke down how I didn't think he would kill you today if you went elsewhere in tournaments. And it's just a way to think about it. And Chris, you have a very good point there. The other option, instead of going below, I mean, you have three. You match, you go below, or you go above. And I just, with today's slate, with Damian Lillard, with some of the other guys out there that I really like, Hassan Whiteside, if we start looking across positions here, I think that there are better plays than Bradley Beal today. In my main lineup, I have Bradley Beal. I also have Fred VanVleet because I have to play in the Fred Van Elite fan club. So I would not recommend that to anybody else because there are way better plays than him. But that's the route I want, and I still think I have a pretty competitive lineup. So one thing I've been doing is I write this Cash Building Blocks article. So I've been picking up a bunch of cash games from different people. So I go out there and see who's posted. I pick a few players that I know that are good because I want to, and are touts in the industry, and I just want to see how I do against them, what's their lineup construction, etc. And then I try to pick some players whose names I don't recognize. Right now, I think I'm winning like 55 or 58%. So it's not very much. And more often than not, I either kind of win most of them or I lose most of them. That's kind of how it works with the NBA, because if you miss out, the markets are so efficient now that if you aren't on the right player, you're not going to get there. Well, why was I not on the right player? Well, I try to make it so I know I'm going to have a 2v2 or a 3v3 against these other guys, because otherwise you literally are ending up playing a similar lineup. I've got a lot of people asking me on the private messages here, how many Wizards would you play in your cash lineup? Maybe three. I mean, I guess I would do Beal-ish and probably Torri Brown. I'm not as fired up about Admiral Schofield as everybody else, but he is kind of the cheapest. I would not play Isaac Bonga, but I don't think anybody's really going to be playing him. Mm-hmm. If you wanted to go with Schofield, I think you have some nice differentiation plays with the Damian Lillard. We'll have to see what's up with Shabazz Napier, who has an illness, may or may not start. That's in the last game of the night or the 10 o'clock game. So there are some other ways you can maneuver away from that, but I don't think you need more than three. But the final point is, Chris, we don't know what's going to happen. That's why they played the games. Last night, I thought for sure it was going to be Rajon Rondo, Anthony Davis, and Paul George without Kawhi Leonard. Well, you know what? Paul George was not good. Montrezl Harrell, not good. Lou Williams, not great. And the Clippers actually lost. I didn't think that was going to happen, but they played it, and that's what happened. So you just got to decide where you want to take your risks and where you want to be different.
Now, Ricky asking a question, which I think dovetails with what we were talking about. Since majority will view slate as more of a balance, wouldn't it be better to go heavy on Beal to create an edge for DraftKings in particular? That's where I would feel about it if Beal were a bit lower. I think at 26%, it's not really like that's a number that really doesn't have a strong feel to it for me, where like I ended up at 30. I figured he'd be around 35. And that was like, I just, adjusting for how things shake out with the ownership updating in this last hour of the show for us, that's just what I felt comfortable with. But, I think if it's at a point where if Beal went to 20%, because you'll hear people talk about it. Emacs talked about it. There are people who talk about it in the chat. Like Hardin's cheap today. That's a place that people want to go. You can afford to get there. I think that's one thing that can tear some ownership away from Beal. It just depends on what the final run of ownership is and where you want to go. Like I'm comfortable with Beal having the floor and the ceiling. At the same time, I want to get some other lineup looks. I think that's like Emac mentioned, there are ways to going to Whiteside, going to a guy in Brandon Ingram I like every night. Or just, going a little bit cheaper at shooting guard and going to a guy like Damian Lee or JJ Redick, whoever in that price range, you can spike an upside depending upon their matchup. I think that's certainly a move to take. But it's just, I think having Beal exposure in line with the field seems to be the move I'd want to make, just because it's an 11-game slate loading up on a guy like Beal who gives you 45 fantasy points. You're not unhappy with it. But if he gives you that, like you're not winning a tournament, most likely. I think that's sort of the risk and reward of playing Beal, a lot, as that you could be comfortable with your lineups and maybe differentiate in other spots. But,
and there's one other thing where people are using terms, and depending if you're catching information from a bunch of different sites, and there's some other sites out there that are okay. I still think we're the best, but one of the things you want to watch, see that subtle dig there. One of the things that you want to watch out for is when you say we're going balanced. Okay, well, what that kind of means in today's DFS means you're not spending for the stars, but you're still taking the cheap guys. What balance used to mean before they had some of these more extremes was you were taking, like, if you had a balanced lineup tonight, you wouldn't go below 5,300 on DK, full stop. And you probably, with that, wouldn't really be able to go much into the eights for any of your player. That's a balanced lineup, staying in that range. Just because you're not, taking the extreme value and shoehorning in those really top end guys, that doesn't mean you're building a balanced lineup. You're still going to have a boatload of overlap against people that are going to go the same route. If you want that additional differentiation, don't play 3 wizards in your lineup. Play 2. Don't play Shabazz Napier. Play Damian Lee. Although I think his popularity is going to come up. That's what we're talking about here when we say more of a balanced lineup. It's on both ends. That's where you got to shrink your range.
So let's wrap up the Wizards and let's do a fun little game here. I don't know why for you, Emac, let's go special. We'll play a little game with this. Tell me if you would be above, under, or with the field on these Wizards. And I feel like let's just burn through this. Ish Smith right now, we have a 37% on DK. Would you be above, under, or with the field on Ish?
I am probably going to come in around 30%.
Yeah, I'm a little bit under Ish as well, in part because I love Elfrid Payton a lot today, and his price point's close enough that I ended up going there a decent amount. RJ Barrett too, close in the price point. I think there are ways to get around there with Ish. I have him projected for under 30 fantasy points. And for me, that is a threshold where I don't mind him if the value's there. If it's a lineup where I need to get to his salary, that works. But even going to Torri Brown is $300 more on DraftKings. There are ways to get around. So I just feel like coming a little bit under on Ish seems fine. If you want to take the value and trust him, I don't mind that either because there's just so much usage floating around in that lineup. Torri Brown, how about him? Above, under, or with the field at 17% projected ownership?
That I feel is appropriate right there. I will probably come in under that, but I think that's the right number. He's demonstrated he can do a little bit of everything, but with the Wizards, I don't know who is going to make the shots. I kind of mentioned, are they still going to be efficient on offense? Okay, you've got Beal, you've got Ish Smith, theoretically Torri Brown. Who else? Jan Mahimani, maybe. After that, we're running out of guys that are competent shooters. I mean, even the guys they lost are 45% shooters, which is kind of the new 50% in the NBA. But they're not great. So that can stagnate the offense. That can shorten possessions. That can do a lot of other issues. So what I'm worried about is the overall general efficiency for all of that. So yeah, those guys should get the volume. But if Torri Brown's not making his shots, what else is he going to do? I don't see him getting. Where would you put his ceiling in this game? I think 33, 34 DK points.
I'd give him high 30s just because I do think
achievable, like a say 30% outcome. What would his 30% outcome be for you?
So adjusting for right now with the standard deviation and then adjusting for the projection I have for him, I have him at 36 for his ceiling, which I think feels a little bit low. But I think I believe a little more in his steal upside, his assist upside. The next team does play a little sloppy. And going to be a little sloppier without Marcus Morris out there as well. Kevin Knox going to be taking some of those minutes, or probably a lot of those minutes. So I would go a little bit higher for Brown, but I agree. I think he's a with the field guy. If you really had a strong inkling for him, his price has come down enough where I could see talking yourself into it. But I don't think he's a 40 fantasy point guy. Like I feel like even if I were to be generous to give him high 30s, I just don't see him getting much more than that. At least in this current position. Like if Beal were out, it might be a different ball game. But as it is right now, I think mid 30s would be where I'd feel comfortable giving him a bump to, but I don't see him as a lock to get over 30, and that to me is kind of an important threshold for this slate.
Yeah, I think that's well said, Chris.
Beal, how about him with 26%? I said right now I'm a little bit over it, but in my mind, I view him mostly as a with the field play.
That's kind of going to be where I am. I don't want to go more than a third on any of the Wizards. I just think there are other opportunities. I'm a little surprised people aren't going a little more aggressive than that, but you have to have two different hats on. If you're playing in the smaller fields by smaller fields, 10-mans, 3-mans, triple ups, etc., Wizards are going to be more popular. If you're playing in the big tournaments, then what we're projecting is probably about right. And it wouldn't shock me if, it's plus or minus 5% on numbers like that. So if they came in at 20, 25, because the slate is so large, that wouldn't surprise me either. But I think company.
Admiral Schofield, I think, is an important one too, because I feel like people may just talk themselves into the value play there, even though he's been really not productive on a permanent basis and hasn't seemed like he's even tried to take usage away from other guys, whether there are people out of the lineup or not. So I would be under Schofield, though. His ownership is a reasonable 14%. Like if you're going to get 14% Schofield at 3,500 on DK, I don't hate it. But EMAC, what would you do with Schofield at 14%?
Did not even occur to me to play him today.
Okay. I got a little bit with Alex's projections, oddly, which I was like, all right, if that's what I'm getting, I'll take it. But it's a cheap price. It opens things up. But I like him, like the ceiling for him is like what, 20, 25 tops?
Yeah, and to be fair, yes, I thought about him, et cetera, but I don't know what he can do. The problem is, so when we look at those Memphis teams that were going down, 3 and 4 years ago, that were going down to the 7, 8 guys, those were all veteran players that were decent and could come in and do stuff. These Wizards guys are all young or they're unproven. It's not like you're getting, I'm forgetting the guy. Sorry, derailed myself. But Mario Chalmers and stuff like that. These guys were all solid 6th and 7th men. They just all happen to be on the same team. You can survive like that. The Wizards have a bunch of guys that don't play rotation minutes that are now starting for them. That's a problem.
Yeah, the thing that jumped out to me was that, besides Beal, all the other guys in the lineup, nobody is even close to a 20% usage rate, which is, a threshold for a guy who's just shooting a good amount within the flow of basketball. I mean, you look at Ish is at 17% on the year. Torri Brown's at 16%. Jan Mahinmi's at 18%. So he's actually the number 2 guy behind Beal. Like, these guys just don't shoot. They're not accustomed to shooting a lot. Can they do it? For sure. But, for a guy like Schofield, who's a 0.63 fantasy point per minute player, I'd expect him to become a 1 fantasy point per minute guy because Davis Bertans isn't in there. He's not going to shoot like Bertans does and put up 10 3-pointers a game. That's just not ever going to be Schofield's game. Anybody else in the Wizards that you have? And also, is there anybody, I guess, that you consider to be in a group? Because Stride Money in the premium Slack asking about groups/rules for tonight. I don't know if any groups or rules. I guess Mahinmi and Basent. Yeah, I always screw up this name.
I wouldn't play more than one of the Wizards front court players.
Yeah.
On the same lineup. And
Paschniks. That's it.
Paschniks, yeah.
Adam
says AP.
It's because I've heard it right, I think, a handful of times, but in my mind, it definitely is not spelled like that. But
no, it's better to learn that one phonetically and then just never look at his name.
Yes. Paschniks, though, is a player who I would not want with Mahinmi. Those guys are not going to get minutes together. But besides that, I really didn't get much of either guy. There's better center plays and power forward plays. I think Paschniks might have dual position eligibility. I don't see any reason to have groups and rules. Like Ish doesn't compete for point guard minutes. And maybe if you're going to play Gary Payton, maybe don't play him with Ish, but I'm not playing Gary Payton, to be clear. All right, let's keep going. Let's talk about the other side for the Knicks, EMAC, because I feel like this is one that to me feels very important. And Julius Randle's ownership is the only one that's chalky, but as I mentioned, I do like Elfrid Payton quite a bit. I could see going in Knox and Mitchell Robinson as well. Like this Knicks team, playing guys against the Wizards for the most part, especially when they're reasonably priced, has been a good spot to go to for literally every team. You could talk about teams like Orlando when Vooch was out. A lot of those guys had big success against Washington. Washington plays with a lot of pace and a lot of bad defense. And these guys coming in aren't going to change that equation very much. Maybe it slows down a little bit less efficient, but they're not going to be better defensively. So what are you doing with the Knicks, EMAC, and who do you have the most of on that side?
So Julius Randle is my favorite player of the entire day. And he's my core play. It was in the article. This is the thing I wanted to point out. Last 3 games New York has had have been blowouts. One, they beat the hell out of Atlanta. The other 2, they got their ass kicked. So Randle, in the 2 games where they lost, he did not play in the fourth quarter, full stop. Generally, if you go back when they brought in the new coach, he would play, depending on situation, how close was the game, et cetera. He'd play somewhere between 7 and 9 minutes in the fourth quarter. So he missed out on all of those. So I think people that are game log watching are not realizing that. Second, the Wizards play at the second fastest pace. They are the worst rebounding team in the league right now, and they're not getting any better with the guys that are missing. And this is just the perfect game for Randle. The other thing that ideally, if this is more of a pace-up game, remember we saw Julius Randle at times with the Lakers and with the Pelicans flirt with a little triple-double there because he's actually a decent passer for a big man. We don't have to worry about Taj Gibson. Morris is out, etc. He should be on the court more. Who the hell knows what they're really doing with their point guards? I would think they would like to play Elfrid Payton more than they are. We'd like to see RJ Barrett do it more. But the point is, they are really going fully positionless basketball. So if he's on there and Bobby Portis is out there, etc., I think you can see him get some secondary assists and or some transition assists. So I think that's yet another little upside tick. I feel pretty good about him getting to 40 fantasy points tonight with confidence. So I am playing him as a core play. If you can't get to him, I do like Bobby Portis as well. He's kind of like the mini version of Randle with all those other guys out from a fantasy perspective, not from a playing or a style perspective, but from a fantasy perspective.
Also, officially, Mitchell Robinson moving into the starting lineup, so that's certainly going to give him a better chance of production. He's been almost high 20s. He's been in the high 20s of minutes, not reliably. Has had some in the lower 20s recently, but he should be getting more extended run here. And Mitchell looked like a good play to me already. He's currently projected to be under 10% owned. That should rise a little bit in our next run of ownership. And again, these things do change throughout the hour for people in the YouTube chat right now being unnecessarily toxic for no reason. But Mitchell Robinson is a player who obviously very productive per minute going against this Washington matchup where a lot of centers have had massive days. One of the better center matchups in the league. One of very few times, by the way, which you can consider DVP when you're looking at the center matchups. So Mitchell, to you, Emac, how does he feel as a value? Because I have a lot of Tristan Thompson, and I may switch some of that to Mitchell now because I like Tristan in his spot, but Mitchell's cheaper. And if he's going to see, if he has a chance at seeing 30 minutes, I mean, he could obliterate in a pace-up spot.
Oh, but is Taj Gibson playing?
Taj Gibson's out now.
Okay. All right. Well, let me hit refresh. I see chat saying I don't know what I missed on there. Sorry, I didn't refresh my entry page. My apologies, Chris. I was trying to track that down. What was quickly hit me with the question?
Yeah, Mitchell Robinson projected for under 10% ownership now. Now he's officially starting with no Taj in. So how are you feeling about Mitchell's prospects, given that this is really one of the better center matchups in the league?
I think it's an excellent one. He is a guy that we do know has 6 or 7 block upside. That is the key for him getting to 40 or even 50. Yes, 50 fantasy points. This is the kind of matchup where it can happen. For us, many times as I was just bad mouthing how the Wizards can't really shoot, they can't make it. That means rebounds. They're the worst rebounding team in the league. That's a bonus for Robinson, for Randle, for Portis, anybody in that front court. So I think that's a good matchup. My counterpoint against Mitchell, Robinson would be trying to get to someone like a Hassan Whiteside. I mean, they're different price tiers, but that's where I would be trying to go. Perhaps Clint Capella. I don't know if we have a injury update on him.
He's in. He's probably
he's in the heel. Okay, so those would be the guys right now that I'm comparing to. They are better. They have a better chance of getting 40 plus fantasy points, but that doesn't mean they're going to get there. Robinson very easily could. You can use that savings away from those guys, and all of a sudden you're saying, hey, perhaps would I prefer Robinson and Hardin, or would I like Beal and I don't know, fill in the blank with somebody similarly priced there. That's the decisions that are really fun tonight, where we can start looking at how we're going to construct our rosters, our player portfolios, etc.
Also, Bruce Brown now ruled out, so that is going to change in some situations for the Pistons. One would assume Luke Kennard is also out, so one would assume we're going to see more Derrick Rose minutes, more minutes for perennial Josh Engelman favorite Langston Galloway in that spot, but definitely going to see more backcourt minutes to go around for the Pistons. I still don't think I'll land on Derrick Rose much because he's going to be minutes limited for the most part. I think he's seen generally a cap of around 30. It's hard to imagine him getting above that or even getting close to it, and still kind of a bad matchup against Philadelphia. So, Emac, does Bruce Brown being out change anything for you with Detroit? Do you think you'll be getting any of these guys a little bit more? So you want to go Svi Mikhailiuk? Maybe he's going to get some open looks against Philadelphia?
I just don't like the matchup with Philly. I think there are better ways to go here. The Derrick Rose thing's a little concerning. We know they're limiting his minutes. It was set. They had him rest the other day. They've said they're not going to go over 30 minutes with him. He may or may not play on some back-to-backs, etc. I just think there are better options to go to. I think Drummond is interesting, but I'd still look to other guys tonight. I like some of these West Coast late night games, truthfully.
Yeah, so there's definitely some other ways to go there. And if, it does feel a bit on this slate in particular where people may squint their eyes and try to find guys to fit in there. Tim Frazier, I think, may pop to some people because he's probably going to get some extended run because of that minutes limit for Derrick Rose. But for me, not a situation I would want to be there too much. I think we have decent enough value. I think you can get a little greedy with value at some of these slates. And, if you want to take a few stabs at Derrick Rose, like on a per minute basis, he is going to do fairly well. And Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond being in there should take away some leverage away from Rose, where he's going to be not as much of a focal point of the defense that Philly has, which is very good. So I could see taking stabs at Rose, but everything else to me, you want to go Galloway, sure, go for it. But
yeah, if you were going to go, I could see going to Frazier as an extreme leverage play against the Ishmael Smith crowd, but I wouldn't want more than, like, if you're making 150 lineups, that's like a 3-guy play or a 4-lineup play. And you're accepting a lot more risk to get that unique lineup. So when you do get to the top, you're not tied with people.
Also, one news item that came out, which I was expecting, but I guess I think was still up in the air. Jonas Valanciunas is officially in, and I mentioned him on Friday as a guy that I like quite a bit at center. Then he ended up missing a game over the weekend. But for me, Jonas against matchups that are weak inside, but also against teams that played a little bit slower pace than Memphis does, allow Jonas to kind of be his best self. He's been over 40 fantasy points in his last 3 games in a pretty good spot. Wait, is Drummond off the bench? Are people actually correct about that? Oh, Andre Drummond will play off the bench Monday. Okay.
Well, now that is something you don't see every day.
I would probably not play Drummond. Yes, would be. We still don't know Embiid's status either yet, unless that's come through and I missed it.
So don't Embiid my status. I want to know his status. Get at me in Slack chat, my friend. Get at me here. But the interesting thing is Drummond and Embiid don't play each other anymore.
Right.
Someone's always missing a game. I mentioned that on the when we did the podcast. I was like, these guys going to miss? One of them not going to play? It's just bizarre. I don't even know how to read into this. To me, it's a red flag. And if I was only playing a couple lineups, I wouldn't really want Drummond. I think there are other plays I would take my chances on that are probably equally as risky. But that one to me just feels really, really weird.
Well, yeah, Thon McCurr will start for Drummond, so maybe it's something where they know Embiid. I don't know. Maybe they know he's going to be in there or he's not going to be in there, I guess would be the thing. Because there are some matchup things where, if you have no Embiid out there.
Here we go. They're clarifying it. Punishment. He missed a practice or missed a shoot around.
Well.
Okay, that feels better. So this is a little hand slap. This is McCurr might be playing 2 minutes and then Drummond comes in. Okay, that's totally better. To me, it was just feeling like it was out of left field. And on a day like today, before a lot of these teams that aren't playing on Christmas Day are getting 4 or 5 days off, if you were a veteran and you knew this was coming up and I don't feel that great, coach, or maybe you had a fun night last night or a fun weekend, just knowing you're not going to play, that's what today feels like. This feels like last day of the season or last 2 days of the season with all these oddities that we've had today.
Yeah, a little summer break for these guys, which I could certainly relate to. Getting 2 days off, EMAC, the next 2 days. So I'm excited for that after they're like 0 for months. But guys,
can you come in on Saturday? We're gonna need you, Chris.
Yeah,
usual time.
Well, that going back to our MLB season, EMAC. With that one. But it's still a spot here where Drummond, you would expect, as EMAC mentioned, him to get a comparable run of minutes. Still not an inkling then into what's going on with Embiid. So don't read the tea leaves too much on it. I'm trying to see where Mitchell shakes out now with whatever update we had, because this to me seems very important for Mitchell. So EMAC, you mentioned the West Coast games. We should talk through some of those. I mentioned that I do like Sacramento side going against Houston. I think they're in an interesting position here, playing with a little bit more pace. They've actually gone from shooting 14.9 seconds into the clock, into when they have a possession, to 14.2 seconds within the last week. So they have taken an uptick, not as big of one as they were last year. So it's still not the high-speed Sacramento that we saw last season, now that they're under Luke Walton, but still a spot for these guys to score. Sacramento side or Houston. I mean, give me your takes on this game. And do you have any Hardin? Do you have any Sacramento? Do you have any stake at all in this game with Houston at Sacramento?
So I like Hardin just because, hey, he's James Harden. I agree with you. I think they're going to start playing faster, particularly the more minutes they can get De'Aaron Fox in there. That's just going to help elevate everything. I really like Capella in this one. From the other side, I think it's going to be, for me, De'Aaron Fox. And then I was trying to figure out what to do with Buddy Hield. And he's a player I like a lot. It's just that the influx of Bagley, I think Bagley's okay on DK. I believe he's still power forward and center eligible. I think he's like 56 or 5,700. I think that's fine as well. But I was trying to figure out what to do with Buddy Hield because he's a player I really, really like. He's, top 5 for 3-point attempts, etc. But all of a sudden, when it popped back with the in and out of Bogdan Bogdanovic, with his health issues, you got Fox back and you got Bagley back. It was hard to tell what they were doing with their rotation with the new coach. And it changed things up just enough that I felt a little more concerned that the extra assist or two weren't going to be there, the extra rebound or two weren't going to be there, because now they were back to having some very competent players on the court with him. So it made me worried about his upside, but his price has ticked down appropriately in this time frame, and you can use him at small forward, and he's one of the guys I am okay with.
We're to be clear, we're talking Hield, right? Or
Hield. Yep.
Okay.
Sorry, I have him set at 20%, which is double where our projections are right now. Mm-hmm. If you go game log watching, they're not pretty. Just keep in mind, all 4 of those have been on the road, and those other guys have been working in here. So I think the upside is still there. I would not play him in the cash line.
Yeah, I mean, look, Hield's shooting 42% from the floor to start the year. His offensive efficiency has been pretty bad too. Compared to the rest of the team, he's only got a 103 offensive rating, which, compared to a guy like Harrison Barnes is at 114. Barnes certainly going to be more efficient compared to Buddy, who's a volume guy, but Buddy's due for better days, and I don't mind chasing it in a pace-up spot against Houston, a team who has some decent defenders, but still not a great defensive rating overall as a team. So, yeah, Hield is one guy I ended up above the field on, and Fox as well, I got a good amount of today. And I'm willing to take that risk. He's still rounding into form, but if Bogdan ends up out somehow, I think that'll help him out as well. And even if he's not out, I don't really care because Fox does supersede Bogdan in terms of usage and ball handling time. So I don't know. This game to me just looks like one that's good. Let's burn through these other West Coast games, Emax. We have some questions in the premium Slack that I want to get to. Sure. New Orleans at Portland. You mentioned Hassan Whiteside. To me as well, grades out as one of the top plays on the slate. Set a season high in both fantasy points and minutes in his last game. Got to 38 minutes. Does give him a good bit of potential here. Lillard and McCollum, too, also look good. We talked about McCollum's price earlier. It's a strong price point for him on DraftKings and on FanDuel as well, but more so on DraftKings. Lillard also priced down on DraftKings. These guys are going to benefit if Carmelo's out. We still don't know Carmelo's status. But even if Carmelo's in, he's going to take some usage away. But the price points for these guys make them appealing. A pace-up spot against New Orleans. Emac, what do you have in this game, too? Because New Orleans side, I also like. Brandon Ingram is a play for me every single night. JJ Redick at his price point, I don't mind. Derek Favors also getting high 20s minutes. I have no issue with that. So what are you doing with Portland and New Orleans?
So for me, it's pretty closely consolidated with the 2 guards, Lillard and McCollum, and Whiteside. I think Whiteside is phenomenal. I'd love to get him in this spot. The thing that he has been doing, and I don't have his game log up, but I was watching the last few games. He is passing more. We used to 2 and 3 years ago, we used to joke that he'd get, 3 assists a week, whether he needed to or not. He's actually been passing. They've had him in closing lineups. It's not Coach Eric Spoelstra saying, we're going to put some real floor spacers out there. And he's been responding well. I mean, who the hell knew? Now, granted, they're still losing and not doing great, but who the hell knew that just letting Carmelo be Carmelo was kind of at least going to put a decent product on the court and make them competitive? They're still losing and they're in trouble and they need to figure some stuff out, and they really missed Yusuf Nurkic. But I like the fact that Portland's taking some chances here with these guys, and what that means is they don't have the quick hook. So ideally Carmelo's out tonight. That's really going to help the other 3 guys, because that's going to open up about 15 shots again for yet another game. But I'd stick with those guys. Flipping it, very disappointed in Jrue Holiday this season, but I think at some point he's going to have to turn it around. He's just been too good the last few years, especially when he's kind of been the focal point of the offense for this to continue. And I like Brandon Ingram. That's about where I stop with the Pelicans. So this is really a 5-person game for me. But they're guys that I would say are core or right on the edge of being my core group of, say, 25 guys tonight.
Yeah, and to be clear, because I talked about Ingram the other day on Friday, I thought he was a guy who was in a pretty decent spot there. Didn't quite have his best day in that situation, but to me, I find him appealing. Compared to a guy like Kawhi last year, where Kawhi, is going to get you 40 to 45 every single game. Ingram will get you 40, and I think his standard deviation numbers don't look great on the year, but that team has been so fluid where Ingram has started to shoot more and been more involved in every possible way of that offense, especially without Lonzo being a primary ball handler in the same groups with them all the time, or at least not having Lonzo and Jrue all the time. I really like Ingram pretty much every day. And to me, he and Holiday just look underappreciated. Those guys under 10%, I don't think they should, as long as they're at these price points, shouldn't be under 10%. Another game here, EMAC out west. We talked about a little bit with the news that we're waiting for here, but Minnesota at Golden State. D'Angelo Russell, somebody asked about in the premium Slack, being one of the sneakier plays of the day. Also, Joel Embiid officially in, so now we nothing to worry about the Sixers changing materially there. And Embiid's certainly going to have at least a few easier minutes with no Drummond out there to start that game. Actually, EMAC, question for you. Playing any Joel Embiid in this spot now that we know he's in and he's probably not going to be very highly owned at all?
I have zero problem playing him at all. Because I'm on air, I'm not getting as cute as I would like to be.
You're adorable, EMAC. Don't worry about it.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it. I don't mind it at all, but I probably would have 5%. I don't know where we have minutes number. I'm going through and it's going to start setting my caps here in a minute. So just how I do it, if a lot of people have asked, we got a lot of new members here. I upload usually right around now or 10 minutes ago, upload our projected player projection, ownership projections, and then I start going in and moving them up or down of where I want my players to be. You want to be careful here because if you set too many too high, you're not going to really get what you want, but you want to make some stands here and there. A lot of things that I do is anybody less than 5%, I just set them at 5% and don't worry about it. But I try to go and pick through. So guys like Ish Smith, Bradley Beal, some of the lightning rods, basically the top 20 most popular plays, I decide where I want to go, even above or below. And then I pick some of the guys I really like and go really high. So like tonight, that'll be Julius Randle. He'll be on probably half my lineups. But that's where I make my differentiations. The other thing you want to remember is if you start doing that and you re-upload it again, you overwrite what changes you've made. So once you make that stop, you don't want to keep doing it. Unless you download, re-upload, it's a mess. But we do have that other column. You can upload a different column so you can keep an eye on what the new projections are, just if you need a comparison. So anyway. Sorry.
Yeah. I think for me, we talk about this a lot on this show, in particular on Live Before Lock, because of how things break down. But anytime you get Embiid at very low ownership coming in, even on a slate of this size, like if you wanted to have some exposure, if you're a person who was entering, 150 lineups right now, and you could find a way to get him in there, boost his projection based upon whatever run of minutes you had for him. It's never a bad spot to do that. And I think going against Detroit in particular, I mean, Embiid has had some down games against Drummond, but he's been playing like a different man of late. So
here's his last 6 against Drummond. DK points, 45, 65, 64, 36, 38, 42. That's in reverse chronological order. So 2 of his last 3 has gone over 65. That's pretty good. That's like Bradley Beal numbers.
Yeah, he's definitely in Bradley Beal range in terms of the opportunity and the projection in front of him. And yeah, I think the spot for Embiid now, we had him at under 1% because of his questionable status. As EMAC mentioned, even if he gets to 5, it's still going to be lower owned than it should be based upon how he's performed recently. So back to the West Coast games, because we did jump off there. Minnesota, what are you doing with them right now as a person? EMAC, you're playing on both sides today or just DK?
Just DK. So I am assuming that Towns is probably – I am treating it as if he's out because I'm okay going with Hassan Whiteside at a comparable price point. I am still okay putting in Gorgie Dang at his price point, and just there will be enough. I will have probably half my player pool will be from these last 3 games. When we get news, I'll have plenty of ways to fix things using the Swaptimizer. So I'm not locking myself into stuff. Josh got 3rd in that contest on Friday night for $10,000 on FanDuel because he had Gorgie Dang before we knew what was going on. Or maybe it was Saturday night before we knew what was going on with Karl Anthony Towns. So you can take chances like that. Even if Towns plays, Dang still is going to play. He's proven that he deserves more time in the rotation than he's been getting. But from this game, I regardless of what's going on, I like Wiggins. If we were to know Karl Anthony Towns was out, Wiggins would definitely be cash viable. So Wiggins, Teague, and Napier. Napier's dealing with an illness as well. So have a contingency plan for that. If you're on DraftKings, your contingency plan is sort of built into that same game. On the other side, you have Damian Lee, who's a very similar price point there to Shabazz Napier. So that's your get out of jail free card. I don't know that I'd go as exotic as to set a rule where I don't have both those guys on the same lineup, but that would be one way to make sure you have a relatively easy pivot fix to get out of that. I really like Alex Burke tonight. I think he's in this type of matchup where there's not going to be a lot of defense, not going to be a lot of rebounding. He's the kind of, let me rephrase that, not a lot of intimidating front court players. This is the kind of game he will do well in. So I like him. Somebody had asked about D'Angelo Russell. I'm on the fence. Been a little bit disappointed with him. I feel more strongly on a point per dollar basis with Alec Burks and with Damian Lee that I would rather go there. I don't hate it as a play, but at that point, I'd start trying to look at a Drew Holiday, maybe somebody from. I'm trying to think if anybody's similarly priced there in Phoenix, but we do know that Ricky Rubio's back. But I'd start looking at some of those guys instead of D'Angelo Russell, in my opinion, just because I think it's harder for him to get 40 plus fantasy points, which at his salary, that's where he needs to make a difference. I think that Damian Lee can get into that 25 or approach 30 range on a good night, and I think Burks can get into the 30s. So that's why I feel more comfortable with the two of them.
Yeah, I agree with you on Burks. I mean, Burks has been playing about 30 minutes a game over a pretty long stretch now, and he's also been shooting a little bit more recently. The pace goes up with Russell in the mix, and the defense goes down for Golden State, so that makes things more appealing for Minnesota. I think people maybe box score watching that last game that Russell had against Minnesota, and it honestly wouldn't shock me if he has, I would say, kind of a revenge thing with Minnesota, because they were a team he was rumored to go to. They didn't want to shell out the assets for him. And it doesn't seem crazy to me that his one really outlier game we saw this year was against Minnesota. But Minnesota also just plays with pace and bad defense, so that's always going to be a good spot for Russell if he heats up. So I don't mind him, but at 17% ownership projected for him, like that seems about right. I'd rather go to guys where Z-Mac mentioned the lower owned guys like Burks, Damian Lee, even Draymond I have a little bit of tonight, where I don't hate that spot for him. And the price in particular, I don't mind for him at all. Let's go through a couple questions real fast. We had a couple of general ones. Elusive Smoke asking, what do you think about locking in Hardin now on DraftKings and swapping off of him based on Minnesota news? I think on this slate, I'd be reluctant to lock in anybody at any price point. But EMAC, do you have any thoughts on going heavy on Hardin and then just using his salary to kind of pivot things around for the late games?
No, because who are you going to go to right now that you wouldn't? I don't trust Karl Anthony. If Karl Anthony Towns plays, it doesn't mean I want to play him. It means I want to play less of the other guys. I'm concerned about the knee. I'm concerned about his effectiveness. He's had some time off. So I like the thought. I just don't see what I would go to that I couldn't already get now in the later games, unless you're just trying to buy yourself time.
Yeah, I think if you're trying to buy yourself time and then you went to some combination of like Napier to me is a better play if Towns is out. I think that's one thing I would consider. Towns would be the best play. So if you were shifting to him off of Hardin and then you also had some like Damian Lee with him, there's some way to do it. It's not a move that I would be making. And I think it's a little bit of a level beyond, like I'm not playing 150 entries today. I feel like if you are a person who was playing 150 and had thousands of dollars on the line, I think it's a little more of a move you would be trying to go out of your way to make, but not something I hate. I just don't see a natural way to do it. But I think there are some ways where if you pay for Hardin, then go down to Wiggins and go like some value around there. There's ways to make it work. If you want to get cute, that's definitely a thought.
And I think it may be a better way of saying it, Chris, is that is something that on a day like today with all of the news, this is where you can utilize. There's enough late games that are good that we have choices.
Yep.
If there were only one or two, then we're painting ourselves into a corner. Today's the type of day where you're like, you know what? For me, I'll have a little bit here of the Wizards and New York game, but I'm really not going to play anything else till 8 or 8:30 at the earliest because I want to see what else breaks, what happens. Maybe there's somebody who's surprised out, et cetera. Now, we don't know what that's going to be. Nothing's really shaping up that way, but that would be the way I would go. Like, let's pretend Karl Anthony Towns has been healthy. All of a sudden, he's out tonight, and he had been playing for the last 5 games. That's when you're like, oh, my God, now I can get to all these other plays that people aren't going to be around. Who is that kind of player that could come out tonight that would really have that kind of an impact? Hardin, he's probably not going to have that happen. Embiid sounds like he's playing now, et cetera, and he's the early game, et cetera. But that's where you can map out the whole slate and get into that really fun game theory.
Yeah. And also just real fast for the NFL fans. I know EMAC, I assume it's you today still doing the NFL Live Before Lock show for Monday Night Football, but Alex Madison is officially out. So lock in your Mike Boons.
Okay. It'll be it's Sal and your old pal tonight. Sal Vetri will be joining me for his
Sal and the old pal. Always a good combo. Sal always does a good job too. And obviously you do too, EMAC, but Sal always does a very good job in terms of preparation and bringing some good angles. So check that show out in a little bit, probably about 45 minutes, I guess 40 minutes now. All right. So let's go through some more. Actually, before we take the last round of questions, I just want to hit on one game. I think this Atlanta Cleveland game, people are just not paying attention to. There's a 230 point combined total, which really doesn't make sense. And if you are a person who's playing, as we would generally advocate for, following Vegas lines and playing games in accordance with them, like this game is nobody over 10% besides Kevin Porter Jr. And I don't think Kevin Porter Jr. should be over 10% owned. I get him as a pivot to Schofield, but there's just bad defenses here. And Cleveland's also getting a pretty big pace up. John Collins being in the mix for Atlanta certainly changes the equation for them a bit. But for Cleveland's side, I really like these guys quite a bit. Did you get any of this game at all, Emac?
Yeah, I think I'm making it so I'm getting about 10% of Herter, Clarkson, and John Collins. Okay. And all I'm doing to do that is just setting my cap at 10, and I'm putting them at enough points that they're going to come into my lineups. And that's how I'm forcing some exposure to it. I don't have time to play with the mix, etc. But if you're reacting to news quickly, this is one way of doing it. And then Kevin Porter, I think Darius Garland is kind of interesting as a punt, but at 4,600, I think I'd still rather go with Ish Smith just because we don't know exactly what's going to happen with Garland. So while I think it's a viable pivot, I'd still prefer Ish against him.
Yeah, Clarkson has to steal minutes from one of Sexton or Garland, or possibly both, and that's when he's had his big success, including last game where he went nuts. The price jump kind of scares me off of Clarkson, but he can get hot and shoot, and this Atlanta team really doesn't defend well, and it's not going to get much better with John Collins. We'll get a little better at the rim, but not much better overall. So yeah, to me, Clarkson, and also a guy who I feel like we talk about too much on this show, but I often don't play, but I'm playing him a little bit today. Cedi Osman, to me, at his price point, if he earns just a few more minutes, not always a lock. In fact, he'll have good games and just lose court time. But in this spot, I don't mind taking that stab at him at 4K flat on DraftKings. He projected well for me. And, he's a pivot to some of the other owned value guys. So I don't mind Cedi in this spot. But yeah, Cleveland to me, Tristan Thompson, Kevin Love, Cedi, the guards. I think you can mix in some of these guys here. And they're pretty good tournament plays who are not owned. So if you want to differentiate a chalky lineup, going just this game in general, we'll probably give you some of those guys. Emac, are there any games that you have here that you feel like people aren't on either? Because to me, San Antonio at Memphis too is another one that I find appealing that people aren't on. Anything like that for you or that particular game?
No, I think the one I'm really going heavy on right now is Golden State and Minnesota. Just for two factors. I still think too many people are on the Wizards Knicks game. And part two, it buys me time to fix things. And I think that's a luxury that is often overlooked here by the DFS world. If you're on a late swap site.
Yeah, no, I think there is certainly equity, especially on FanDuel, as Emac mentioned with Josh's quality finish over the weekend. Sometimes if you take those risks and you just buy in early while people are really uncertain, like that game, the Minnesota Golden State game looks appealing too. I think there are just a lot of games on the slate that to me, because people are rushing towards value or rushing towards a particular angle. We have a lot of games here that should have big production that are just mostly overlooked. And I think we've done a decent job talking about them, but there's as always, as Osmo says, your best asset in any of these things is going to be your own intuition. And I think there are a lot of people who are just following ownership and following kind of the open value rather than just looking at the slate overall. We got some questions in the premium Slack, which I'll burn through right now. Morgan Smith, one of our guys, asking, can you play Burks and D'Lo together? I don't find an issue with that, but Emac, do you?
No, not at all. I don't even think I'd worry about playing all three of the guards there on the same team. They can all close, and I think that's the key.
Yeah, and the two, this team is kind of, float around a bit, where Pascal, between being hurt and just kind of his role diminishing, because he really wasn't ever that great of a play, but him being out or hurt, I think, was he ruled out? He might have been already ruled out, but I know he was questionable at least. But him not being there or at least being diminished, plus Glenn Robinson being out, there are shots to go around for these guys and a couple of ball-dominant guards in the mix who can have some potential. Burks or Favors for a fantasy draft, cash and GPP, what would you prefer? I don't know their prices offhand.
Burks, I wouldn't play Favors. I don't like the matchup for him. And even though his minutes cap is relaxed, I don't see him playing more than 25 to 28 minutes. Favors, that is.
I think I like the matchup for Favors more than you do, just because he'll be around the rim competing with Whiteside. And Whiteside's actually given up some decent center days because of guys just being parked around with him, where you can kind of get some upside just by hanging around the same spots Whiteside does to achieve his upside. But I would still go Burks. It's a pace-up spot and still not great Portland defense. And Burks just keeps shooting and shooting more. And the 30 minutes of court time in this spot, to me, is just too valuable to ignore. The Maharishi asking, can I play Randle and Robinson together on Yahoo? I wouldn't find an issue with that either. I'd be more concerned about Randle and Portis a little bit.
Yeah, no problem with those two. They play differing enough positions that it's not going to matter.
Yeah, and Randle can score more. Robinson may, ball hawk some rebounds, but Randle can also get steals, can get assists. Those are things that Robinson can't do, so I don't really mind it. So I'm starting to question Randle's upside. I'm playing a lot of him today, and if he doesn't get over 40 fantasy points here, I worry a little bit for him.
How much is a lot?
Over 50%.
Oh, good. I'm at 60, so I just wanted to make sure I wasn't alone here.
I look, we put our syllabus out every day, and we were both on Randle today, I believe. And,
Yeah.
I like him as a play. He hasn't quite had the same upside, but I do think taking Morris out of the mix, that gives you a better chance of seeing the true Randle, which is like a guy who dominates the ball, has 30% usage in court time without Morris. Do you mind Tristan and Love in the same lineup? I don't, but that one's a little bit closer because they are competing for the same rebounds. I think I have it in a few lineups though, so I'm not avoiding it. But EMAC, do you have a lean with avoiding Tristan and Love or being okay with it?
I'd be fine with it. I just have them at such a low enough percentage. I don't think they'd ever end up on the same lineup for me. But going against Atlanta, I think it's a favorable matchup. Faster, less rebounding. And that includes John Collins coming back. So.
All right, so we got mere seconds left before lock, so get those lineups in if you have not yet, guys. And also hit that like button. We haven't pandered for likes at all today, but we appreciate the likes, especially this holiday season. We're grinding. We know you guys are grinding too. So show a little love. Keep that positive energy going. All right, this guy putting fake news in the chat with Clarkson being traded. Clarkson did not get traded. Shut up. Don't do that. It's the holidays. Who has
did you give him a 300-second timeout, or did you ban him?
No, he's gone. I know.
Good. That's usually my line of demarcation, just in case anybody's wondering. Oh, and by the way, we don't keep a list of it. So if I actually ban you, you're done.
What? Did he actually get traded? Is that guy not lying? It didn't come through on Fantasy Schmabs.
Oh, no.
Well, all right. Well,
now I feel bad. The poor guy.
Well, Faxi, you are unbanned. You are the first person I will probably ever unban.
I wouldn't even know how to do that. My sincere apologies. I'm the one with egg on my face now.
Yeah, look, it happens. Faxi, you win this round, my friend. But oh boy,
Faxi, if you ever saw all of the ones we get to before you guys see them, you would realize that we become a little bit jaded.
Who did he get traded to? Can somebody please give me all the news? And why is it not? Why did I get an alert?
Jazz get Clarkson.
Exum. Oh, Dante Exum going. What a fun. All right. Well, so hopefully you didn't play Jordan Clarkson.
I did.
Hopefully you didn't play a lot of Jordan Clarkson, but and this is the early game, so now we are locked.
It is. I just went and looked. Yeah, it's the early game. Oh well.
Well, I only had one Clarkson lineup, so I'll take that. But yeah, so look, let it never be said. I do enjoy a good banning for people who are lying, because I feel like I've got to protect you guys from shitty fake news. But Fazzy was correct. So Fazzy, you will hold a special place in my heart.
I have 10% Clarkson. I am paying the Rick tonight for you guys. You're welcome.
Oh, there we go. So, well, fun game of Daddy Likes coming up. Let's do this real fast before you go and do your NFL prep, EMAC. I know we need to burn through it quickly.
Tell you who I don't like, Jordan Clarkson.
Going to be tough for Jordan Clarkson to hit value today. That's unreal. What poor timing on that trade. Jesus, Jordan Clarkson, tough Christmas for him. Now he's going. So he went from LA to Cleveland to Utah, and he's a guy who loves trying to pound it out with the ladies. So Jordan Clarkson, tough run for old Jordan Clarkson. I can't believe that one. All right, let's run through a quick round of Daddy Likes. EMAC, if you had to guess DK's Big Jam, the $10 tournament, who would be the top owned player?
Bradley Beal, 32%.
It is, in fact, Ishmael Smith with 45%.
Wow.
Yeah. So Ish got up there. People did not pivot off of Ish as much as it may have seemed like they would. Number 2, EMAC, I think we'll both like, or at least we'll feel we're not going to be alone tonight, EMAC. Who's number 2?
Julius Randle.
It is Julius Randle with 41% flat. So that is a lot of Julius.
Wow. I thought I was going pretty high with 60.
Yeah.
I was trying to double it, but.
Honestly, kind of smart by the field, because his minutes have been screwed up because of the blowouts lately. So good for the field getting there. And, hopefully, I think the Morris thing also is going to definitely give him a boost here, where just Morris not being in the mix gives Randle a little more room to do the stuff that he wants to do, be the bull in the china shop that we all love. Number 3, Mac, who is it?
It has to be Beal.
It is, in fact, Bradley Beal, 39%. So,
wow.
Feels a little high. I said before, 30 felt right to me, but how are you going to hate on Beal with nobody else left on the team? Number 4, we'll run through these. Domantas Sabonis at 26.5%. Always a steady play. To me, another Brandon Ingram guy, just always going to get you around 40. If he gets more, great. If he doesn't, whatever, he's going to get you 40. So that's what you need. Admiral Schofield at 18%. Too much Admiral Schofield.
I want to see how much I have.
He was my bust pick of the day in just for the record.
I had written a formula, so I ended up with 15% of him. I'm not thrilled with it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, look, he's not going to
better than my 10% Clarkson, though.
No, that's going to kill you. That definitely is not going to help you out. His Utah points will not count, unfortunately. Let's see. All right. Rest of the ownership, just making sure. I wanted to see if Fazzy came back because I want to, I feel bad. I feel like for the most part, every person I've ever muted on the chat, has been deserved because I really do have a pretty long leash for it. But poor Fazzy. Fazzy had to shit on immediately. It was like, no, you dick. Torri Brown, 17%. Mitchell Robinson, 17%. Alfred Payton, 16%. Still too low. Aaron Holiday, 16%. Nikola Vucevic at 14 was great for us on Friday. Hope you guys tailed that one a little bit because he was a monster, but not today. Good center spot, but ugly matchup in that one against Chicago. Kevin Knox, 12%. Feels a little low given his value he represented. I'd rather have him than Schofield. Actually, Emac, what'd you do with Kevin Knox?
Oh, God, please tell. I probably had my default 5, so he came in. I don't have him on any lineups.
Ah, man. To me, he was a really nice pivot to Schofield at his price point, so I wouldn't have minded going there a little more. Jeremy Lamb, 11%. Chris Boucher, back again. People can't get enough, 9.5%. He's like an abusive lover. He just keeps luring people back in on these random days where he gets a big run of minutes, but still very much a 50-50 split, or not a 50-50 split, a straight split with Ibaka, where if Ibaka is less bad, he's not going to have those big days.
Yeah, I had 0. They did play yesterday. He had a good game yesterday, but.
And that was one of those days where Ibaka sucked, and they're like, fine, go after a Boucher. But today, probably Ibaka won't suck. It's hard for him to suck that much where he gives up a lot of minutes to Boucher.
Faxy's back. He's Faxy, and we know it.
Okay, good. Faxy, you won this round.
Yeah.
But no, good job. Faxy,
what would Sean V do? That's what I want to know.
He would have been like, I knew he was traded 5 days ago, and I. You don't speak ill of the dead, but what a nut job.
R.I.P. Sean V. It was a tragic accident, but sometimes that happens.
Went a little off the deep end with his craziness. He kept getting so mad at me, even though Josh fucking muted him on the channel. Like, I didn't fucking do anything. Like, leave me alone, you crazy person. Anyway, I think Faxy deserves a free week of Osmo. Yeah, Faxy, email me at chris@osmo.com. I'll give you something. Email me, chris@osmo. But only if you're Faxy. If you're anybody else, you get nothing. And in fact, you'll get disdainful replies from me, if I even reply. Rest of the ownership, let's see if there's anybody weird. Actually, let's just see what Jordan Clarkson is, and we can close it out so EMAC can focus on the stuff he has to. TJ McConnell, by the way, under 3%. I know he wasn't starting, but he's going to get a lot of opportunity with no Brogdon. So that seems like a bit of a faux pas. And Jordan Clarkson, 1.6%. So congratulations to those 1.6%, including our own old pal EMAC. You have played yourselves, EMAC.
I'm 5 times the field. Woohoo! It's a good spot to be.
It's going to happen. It's Christmas season, so you're in the giving mood. That's all we can ask. Well, we hope you guys are all in the giving mood as well. Give to yourself right now and go check out our sponsor at Fantasy Draft. Again, you are giving money to yourself by playing at Fantasy Draft because they are not charging you any rate. It's only a membership tiered system. So go check them out right now and get a free 7-day trial with the promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO. They have big contests for Christmas Day, so save some money on rake on there. Give yourself a better chance of winning a big prize at fantasydraft.com. And of course, also we have all this ownership data and player projections being updated for the late slate as well. So go check that out at awesemo.com/join. We also have data for the showdown slate, which EMAC will be talking about in just a few short minutes here. So check that out at awesemo.com/join and use the promo code live before lock for half off of any weekly package on there. And EMAC, last plug here for you. Whatever you want, just do it.
Hey, enjoy everything, guys. Be safe, be smart. It is the holiday season, and I heard Ben Ross say this today. Just if things get a little rough, there are people that love you, so don't be afraid to talk to them.
Yeah, especially in this time of year. I know, this is kind of, I wouldn't say Eddie's shtick, but a thing that Eddie is very much dedicated to. But, if you are going through any sad times or whatever, like for me, I'm going to hang out with a friend, or I'm not going out east to be back home with family this year. So if you're a person who gets down, talk to somebody, talk to people on Twitter, talk to people on go to the premium Slacks, hang out in there. Just, keep yourself active, keep yourself happy if you are a person who's having a tough time, and know that, 2020 is right around the bend. It's a new decade. It's a fun symmetrical number. So just be happy, guys. It's the holiday season. Be good to each other. Be good to your family and friends. Take care of each other. And we'll be back with you guys, EMAC, in just a few short minutes. I'll be back with you guys on Thursday on Live Before Lock. And of course, Christmas Day, Josh Engelman, Fast Steady Fear, the main event right before the Christmas Day slate locks for NBA. So tune in then. But we hope you guys have a happy holiday, and we'll see you guys around soon. So enjoy your nights and good luck.